I'm going to say a super obvious fact. There are tons of languages out there spoken in the world. After all, that kind of makes sense, given languages arise from people being isolated from each other for a long enough time to start calling things by different names. This becomes extra obvious if you go on a multinational trip to Europe or Asia or Africa, but also try to learn all the languages of all the countries you want to visit. If you tried to do this, you would likely find yourself learning several different languages just to go to one region. So just how many languages are there in the world, and why is there no definite number? Sponsored by CuriosityStream. Click the link below to help out the channel. First, let's look at the numbers, albeit different numbers. At least 178 countries have at least one official language, though this is including all the countries who speak English, French, Spanish, Arabic, and the others. Of those, however, many have 2 or 3 official languages, and some have even more than that. South Africa, for instance, has 12 official languages, and Bolivia recognizes a staggering 37. The numbers get even higher when looking toward regional languages, of which India recognizes 32, China recognizes 47, Russia recognizes 33, the US 28, and old Canada recognizes 9 indigenous languages. This list totals to several hundred languages recognized at least one rung of the government ladder in one country. But the total count of how many languages there are is still much higher than that. In total, linguists estimate there to be around 3,000 to 7,000 different languages spoken around the world. That is an incredibly big range though. So why are linguists so uncertain? Well, this is because of dialects. As just about all of us know, some languages are way more similar to some than to others. For example, English and Turkish are completely different. They developed a world apart from one another, and they're simply not related in the slightest. Albanian is related to English, but still completely different to the ear. German is much closer, and some very basic sentences like öffnet die Tür can possibly be understood in context. Scots, however, not to be confused with Scottish Gaelic or the Scottish accent, is generally considered a dialect of English, since English speakers can still understand what a Scots speaker is saying more often than not, making English and Scots mutually intelligible. Because of the similarity of many of the world's languages, mutual intelligibility is what's usually used to tell apart languages. For example, Turkish and Yakuts are considered different languages since they are not mutually intelligible. However, Turkish and Azeri are generally considered widely different dialects, since it is often said that a Turkish speaker can go to Azerbaijan not understanding Azeri in the morning, but understanding it perfectly by the evening, and thus why it's often called Azeri Turkish. The problem, however, is when dialects stand on the border of being different languages entirely, as in when it becomes too different to be considered a dialect, but still too similar to be a different language. For example, an Arabic speaker from Iraq will likely have trouble understanding an Arabic speaker from Morocco, since the different dialects of Arabic differ so much over so much distance. It does go the other way, however. For example, Serbian, Croatian, Bosnian, and Montenegrin are all often grouped together as Serbo-Croatian due to their high degree of mutual intelligibility, though the one thing keeping these languages apart and pushing others together is politics. Serbo-Croatian is often split into these 4 different languages due to the intense politics of the region. Something similar is also the case in China, where Mandarin Chinese is the official language, but many other dialects are also spoken, mainly in the south. Notably Cantonese in the special administrative regions of Hong Kong and Macau. Mandarin and Cantonese are generally not mutually intelligible, and yet are usually considered different dialects of the Chinese language for largely political reasons. Because of the often incredibly vague differences and similarities between different dialects, it's often hard to tell where one language ends and the other begins, especially in the case of a dialect continuum. All around the world, people arguing that groups of diverse people should be united under one flag and one language, and people arguing that a particular group should declare their independence and insist they speak a different language from everyone else, happens all the time. This has been the case in the Balkans, China, South Asia, Czechoslovakia, and many other places. So, in a sense, the difference between dialects and languages is mostly up for debate between cases. After all, a language is just a dialect with an army and a navy. And these opinions also very frequently change. For example, before the 1990s, people talked about speaking Czechoslovak, whereas nowadays people talk about speaking Czech and/or Slovak. The Romance languages also kind of fall into this category, where languages like Italian, Spanish, and Portuguese are considered different languages, but are still closely related enough that there is still a large degree of mutual intelligibility. In fact, as someone who has studied both Spanish and Italian, whenever I practice one, I usually find myself getting worse than the other. It's weird. Sadly for the world of linguistics, as time goes on and the world gradually starts moving toward using a handful of international languages, we will continue to see more and more languages gradually dying out and going extinct. Humans have spoken easily tens of thousands of different languages over the millennia, and no surprise, most of them by now have been lost to history. I mean, no one's exactly conversing in Sumerian anymore, right? And this is now the case with many small languages today. In fact, out of the 7,000 or so languages and unique dialects spoken today, around 2,000 have less than 1,000 native speakers. In fact, it has been estimated that one language dies out roughly every 2 weeks. This happens for numerous reasons, though in the modern world, this is usually due to a cultural shift into a modern society, often from younger generations living in small groups surrounded by another culture, speaking what is known as a prestige language. Think Native Americans and Australians learning English, or people in the Amazon learning Spanish or Portuguese, or people in far-off Siberia learning Russian. So the amount of languages in the world may be shrinking, but what's probably important to remember is that there are constant efforts being made to preserve these unique ways of seeing the world. Now, the 1911 edition of the Encyclopedia Britannica said that there were around 1,000 languages in the world. Over the last 100 years, this estimate has grown by several thousand, not because there have been a crap ton of new languages, but because linguists had the chance to explore all the world's languages to better categorize them. In a sense, they were almost hiding in plain sight, waiting to be found by the people who wanted to find them. If you want to celebrate this spirit of exploration and deep diving into topics you're truly passionate about, then perhaps you would love the documentary Deep Time History, which you can find on this week's sponsor, CuriosityStream. CuriosityStream is a documentary streaming service founded by the same guy who founded the Discovery Channel, and has thousands of documentaries on everything from the stuff I talk about in my videos, to the stuff I want to talk about in my videos but that I fear wouldn't be too popular, to the stuff I honestly could never make a good video about. These extremely high quality documentaries are available on virtually any electronic device in any place you have internet. And for a streaming service, it's unbelievably cheap, at just $2.99 per month, or $19.99 for an entire year. That's barely more than 2 day tickets on Berlin public transit. And Berlin is not an expensive city. To sign up and also get 1 month for free, click the link below, or go to curiositystream.com/KhAnubis and use the code KhAnubis at checkout. And by doing so, you will also help support the channel. Thanks as always for watching. If you think I should go back to more linguistics content, please give this video a like and share it with anyone you know who likes this kind of stuff, or people who don't yet know that they like linguistics. And as always, be sure to subscribe to learn something new every Sunday.